Good evening, and thank you so much for joining us on The Last Word tonight. My name is Sophia Wanuna. They came, they saw, and they quite did not conquer. In fact, those who argue they were conquered. I'm talking about those that have been at the very helm of the anti-graft institution in Kenya. Of course, currently the EACC, initially it was called CASA, then CAS, and we have seen them rise and fall, and the graft war continues in this country. Currently, the EACC chair, who was just sworn in January of this year, Philip Kinisu, on the spotlight, fighting those allegations of conflict of interest. This is a man who today said he will not resign. He says that company, which he co-owns with his family members, that is said to have been awarded tenders worth millions of shillings by the NYS, of course, which has again been under the spotlight. Allegations of graft, 791 million shillings. Remember that particular saga that led to the vacation of office of the CS Anwar Guru, a matter that is still being investigated by the EACC. So what will be his fate? Will it be like that of his predecessors? Of course, you remember Harun Mao being the first director. There was Justice Aaron Ringera. There was Patrick Lumumba, of course, as well as Muma Matemu, the immediate former EACC chair, and now Philip Kinisu. Is he one that will not manage like the others to finish his term, or will he be able to weather this storm? Share with us your views. Tweet me at Sophia Wanuna. Do you think he will survive the particular claims and allegations that he is facing? That's a conversation we'll be having tonight. But of course, as always, let's begin with a recap of our top stories, some of those who are covering for you here on KTN News. And we begin with the chairman of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, Ahmed Isaac Hassan, goes to bed a happy man tonight. Hassan has been declared clean by both the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission and the National Assembly Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs. But even as both bodies said Hassan had no role in the Chicken Gate bribery scandal, the Special Joint Committee set up to unlock the IEBC stalemate is reading a sinister motive in the attempt to clear the IEBC bosses so soon.
In conflict with the findings of this superior committee, then the findings of this committee shall prevail and override any findings of the Chepkonga committee.
If you look at the motion that created this committee, it is not talking about removal, it is talking about legal mechanisms for the vacation from office.
This process is continuing, and we are not going to rest until we have put in place mechanisms for Kenyans to have a free, fair, and credible system.
ODM party leader Raila Odinga has wound up his two-day tour in Vihiga County by blaming the ruling Jubilee for the ODM wrangles in the Western Kenya region. Raila is asking ODM supporters not to follow leaders preaching the political gospel of Luhya nation unity, and he did not mince his words as he took rebel members in his party head-on as a section of leaders from the Luhya community tore into their colleagues who have said they will exit ODM.
Wezi wamevamia boma yetu. Tunataka kufukuza wezi waende nyumbani. Mnakubali? Mko tayari? Ngapi wako tayari? Yoni kwa mkono. Nimesema Wakenya wana sababu. Wakenya wana nia, Wakenya wana uwezo wa kupeleka serikali ya Jubilee nyumbani. Ama sivyo? Tunataka kueneza Ukenya. Kuna mwingine anakuja kwako kwambia ati sisi kama nation ya Mlembe nation. Hiyo ni mpumbavu.
19 students from Kiambogo High School in Naivasha have been arrested alongside a man believed to have sold petrol to the boys to burn down their dormitory. These arrests come just as Education Cabinet Secretary Dr. Fred Matiang'i appeared before the Senate Committee on Education to answer to the increasing cases of arson in schools. 14 counties have been affected in the latest scourge that has seen nearly 30 students arraigned in court.
Put in place to ensure that all secondary school and to start with boarding schools should have insurance policy so that in case of fire they can be compensated.
The government will not put any money in repairing those schools. And I think no CDF money should be used, because by parents getting involved in repairing those schools, they'll be forced to have a conversation with their children and support the teachers and all of us in disciplining their children as we go along. Why should we spend money repairing a school that children have conscientiously banned?
The National Assembly's Powers and Privileges Committee has asked Speaker Justin Muturi to lift the suspension orders he issued in March, blocking Ugunja Member of Parliament Opiyo Wandayi from accessing the House. William Cheboy, who chaired the committee, says Wandayi's 4-month suspension was sufficient punishment. At the same time, the committee says it will be pushing amendments through the House Rules Committee to enhance punishment for errant members, including payment of punitive fines. Wandayi was ejected from the chambers on March 31st for whistleblowing during a stormy joint parliamentary session. All right, let's now go to the story that's setting the stage for our discussion tonight. And new information now suggests that the EACC chairman, Philip Kinisu's family business, may have received more money from NYS than earlier thought. Documents seen by KTN News indicate that EACC Limited received up to 261 million shillings from the NYS funds and not 35 million shillings as earlier reported. The documents that are now part of the ongoing investigations also point to the payments being made as late as last month. KTN's Murimi Wangi now reports on the revelations and why Kinisu says he will not step aside.
6 months after taking up the Integrity House hot seat with a pledge to root out corruption, Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission chairperson Philip Kinisu is now sipping from the cup of bitter controversy as a multi-agency team begins investigating his family business over alleged fraud amounting to 35 million shillings, alleged to be part of the now infamous National Youth Service scam. But the EACC chairperson now says he will not resign or step aside just yet.
My resigning would be setting a terrible precedent, because what would happen tomorrow is that anybody can go out there and fabricate any allegation to serve their interests.
EACC Limited, a company associated with Kinisu's family, won an NYS tender in 2014 to drill boreholes in Kapenguria. These supplier payment documents show that the company received payments totaling 35,417,000 shillings in October 2014, April 2015, November 2015, and May 2016. Additional payments totaling 246 million and 11,000 shillings were further paid to the company in March and September 2015 and June 2016. But Kinisu insists that all the company's transactions with the NYS were legitimate.
Believe you me, even during the period of the scandal, there was genuine business done at NYS. And as I speak to you right now, I know that the people who did, a lot of the people who did genuine business with NYS, a lot of them never got paid.
Kinisu resigned as director of EACC Limited, the company now in question, on April 19th. This more than a year into the investigations over the NYS scam. The complaint against Kinisu was raised by a civil society group, Bunge la Mwananchi, in May this year.
That notwithstanding, I would still have taken this job, knowing that we have done legitimate business with NYS. It was not unlawful. So that is my response to that.
Earlier this week, the Director of Public Prosecution constituted a multi-agency investigative team comprising the Directorate of Criminal Investigations, the Asset Recovery Unit, and the Kenya Revenue Authority to undertake a fair, impartial, and objective investigation into the alleged Kinisu scam.
Let them go ahead. I don't want to prejudice what they'll find. But until it is shown that what I know to be true is not true, I will not resign.
As the multi-agency team commences investigations into the Kinisu saga, Kenyans will not only be waiting for answers on the integrity of the EACC, but also the whereabouts of the missing millions from the NYS. Muremi Mwangi, KTN News in Nairobi.
All right, thank you there, Murimi Mwangi, for us. And of course, Kinisu's integrity in question. Is he on the chopping board? Do you think he'll survive this particular storm? Tweet me at Sophia Wanuna. Share your views as you've watched this particular story unfold. What do you think? In studio with me to discuss the same, next to me is Dunstan Omari. He's an advocate of the High Court. Thank you for being with us. Jared Okello, political commentator, is in the middle. And Chakai Musa, representative from Bunge la Wananchi. He's the National Deputy Speaker of that civil society organization. We thank you all for being with us on The Last Word tonight. Of course, later on, we will look at just the fate that befell all of the other heads of the anti-graft body. But gentlemen, let me begin with you, Dunstan. Does this surprise you that we find ourselves here with this, you know, talking to EACC, talking about the chair and being under the spotlight?
I'm surprised in one way, Sophia, and Kenyans are surprised that the chair of the EACC was vetted. The chair of the EACC was clearly investigated. The chair of the EACC was cleared by the same EACC before he applied for this job. So what went wrong? Was proper due diligence done? Was the organs mandated by government to ensure that there's nobody was a conflict of interest before he lands on this job? Were they working? Were they compromised? The question that every Kenyan is asking, what is it that our organs created by the Constitution failed to do and let Kenyans down? Two, I'm also surprised that one, Philip Kinisu, a very senior auditor, a very senior person who has held positions in key multinational companies, does not understand the concept of stepping aside to allow investigations to come. He also fails to appreciate the fact that he cannot purport to claim that his wife's business is above board. That can only be done by a fair tribunal, a fair competent authority instituted that has done proper investigations to conclude that the business that a SAC company has been doing is genuine. So I find it quite strange that he's just simply taking Kenyans for a ride and telling Kenyans that he'll not resign. There are quite a number of people who did good business. It is not the traders, it is not the businessmen to decide that their business is above board.
Yeah.
It is the authorities and the investigatory arms of government that will clear you that your business is right or your business is wrong. I find it quite strange.
Musa, so it's your organization that's bringing up these claims and, you know, talking about, rather not a claim, it's something he has admitted to having been part of this company with his wife and daughter. But his argument is that this is a matter that came up initially as he was being vetted and he was cleared. So who should be put to question? Is it him or those that vetted and cleared him?
The question is supposed to be posed to both those who did the vetting and him as an individual, because there's no way he can continue being director of the EACC and yet his family has a company that is doing business with the NYS.
All right, because one of the things that Leadership and Integrity Act, Okello says 2012, speaking of spouses, that his or her spouse or children are part of personal interest. So right there is a clear conflict of interest, even when he has resigned, that when you still have your wife and children involved, then there's a problem.
Well, Sophia, the entire code of public conduct informs certain values, and those values must be adhered to. One is impartiality, neutrality, integrity, professionalism, and accountability. And you'll read the Kenya's constitution, it affirms these values in several articles, Article 10, Article 81, 129, 175, 201, 232, 238. So there is a buffer upon which all issues integrity are properly addressed, not just in the constitution, but other enabling statutes such as the one that you have mentioned there. So you really wonder why Kinisu was given this job, because it came even at a time when he had already transacted with NYS. And this was a time when issues of investigation pertaining to this NYS scandal was in the offing. He swore into office on the 21st of January this year.
Yes.
He said he later on resigned due to conflict of interest. But when did he resign? He resigned in April the 19th. So why did he have to wait for 3 months in order to be given that mandate? But you can ask yourself a fundamental question. When that investigation was going on with EACC and other investigative agencies, and Kinisu, the person, had been involved in certain transactions pertaining NYS, why did they have to give him the job? Was it a way of shrouding everything under mystery, trashing, shredding, and dumping all the files, and then put the issues NYS into the dump site? So these are key issues that I think, as these multi-agency approaches are employed from today henceforth, we will get to know the bottom of these fundamental issues.
Because he's quoted as saying, the challenges that I'm facing are manifestations of corruption fighting back. What do you think of that?
It's true. I totally agree with him. If it is him fighting back, not any other not any other corruption fighting him. Because at the first instance, my learned colleague Okelo tells you, the Constitution in so many articles, it's very clear that you cannot transact. That is clear conflict of interest. The EACC Act is very clear that the spouses and the children of the commissioners and the staffs of the EACC are people of interest. So what is it telling the nation? And I'm seeing one Philip Kinisu taking as the normal political rhetoric, the normal political narrative in this country, so that once anybody is told that this is wrong based on this position of the law, when somebody comes up saying, no, millions have been poured to finish me, or my people are being finished, my community is being finished, let one Philip Kinisu own it, that he did not disclose. One, when you look at a decided case on the rule of bias, the rule of bias and the conflict of interest is a decision of 1870s. Lord Denning was very clear, for the advocates and the judges know that, that confidence is the essence of anybody who exercises judicious decisions. The anti-corruption body decides matters in a manner similar to the courts. Do people, will the Kenyans have confidence to walk there? When his wife, when his children, God forbid, they'll not be here to defend themselves, when they'll be a subject of investigation by any relevant arm of government, will he preside that investigation? Will any officer in the office of the Economics and Anti-Corruption Commission investigate his children or his wife? Definitely, he is the employer. He has the power to give directions, to change directions of investigations. And that is what Kenyans are saying. We are not holding on my person. I'm not holding one Philip Kinisu as a convict. I'm only holding him that because of the rule of confidence, the rule that he must be above like Caesar's wife. Somebody you cannot reproach.
Right.
That is a standard established worldwide.
All
So
right.
one Kinisu needs simply to resign.
Okay. Chakai, let me bring you in first, because your organization, Bunge la Mwananchi, in essence, what he's insinuating is that you're being used by these cartels or individuals or figures to fight against, graft fighting back. So what do you have to say to that?
Yes, I'll say that if somebody argues out that we have been used by cartels to fight Kinisu, then he's right. Because we have been used by the Constitution of Kenya. Article 37 allows and provides for any citizen to send the petition to public authorities. So if Kinisu claims that the Bunga la Mwananchi is not registered to carry out, to send the petition to his office, then he is wrong. Because we are a social movement, Bunga la Mwananchi is a social movement which carries out campaigns on socio-economic and political rights. And they have been doing so many campaigns in this country. If somebody comes out and says that Bunga la Mwananchi is being used by cartels to remove Kinisu from office, then they should read the Constitution, because the Constitution of Kenya, it has empowered us, as part of Article 7, to send a petition to any public authority in this country.
All right.
So that petition we send to his office, we send it under Article 7.
So when did this conflict of interest come to your attention?
The conflict of interest comes into our attention when the director of EACC, Mr. Kinisu, his company, which is now being run by the family, the wife, this year May, on 24th of May this year, it was given tender by NYS. When Kinisu is currently the director of EACC.
Sure.
And remember, he's carrying out the investigation about NYS camp. So there's no way you can say you are carrying out the investigation, and yet your company, being run by the wife, is being given 10,000 by the NYS.
All
So
right.
in fact, that's why we realize if sometimes, I think last year, the EACC had cleared Waiguru,
And then it reversed the same.
and the reverse is the same.
All right.
Well, I think, Sophia, legitimacy or otherwise of Bunga la Mwananchi at this point in time is hogwash. Hogwash to the extent that Kinisu himself has admitted to some of those transactions. So trying to legitimize or validate the existence of this friend of mine here, and whether indeed Bunga la Mwananchi is a registered organization or not, when he has actually clearly stated under Article 37, every Kenyan has a legitimate reason to present any petition before a public authority. So there is nothing wrong that they did. Even if they did not go just as Bunga la Mwananchi, he could still have gone as an individual, and that is still okay within the confines of the law. But, you know, you read the Public Officers Ethics Act, Section 2 and Section 16, read subject to Article 260 of the Constitution. Kinisu is a public officer and a state officer by any standard. And you read Chapter 6 of the Kenya's Constitution on Leadership and Integrity. It makes it very clear that if a public officer will get involved into any conduct that puts a country into disrepute, such as what Kinisu has done, the best thing to do is to step aside and let investigative authorities do their due diligence. But he would ask, you know, those are still allegations so far, and they have not been adequately proven.
Yeah.
So that could be used as a reason why he would want to cling into that office. But the fears are, and that has been consistent with many things happening in this country, that when people sit in those aircon, well-protected offices, and perhaps sitting on certain fundamental files that could unearth more details that are looked for by investigative wings, that therefore compromises the entire investigation. So why people step aside is that firstly, you admit that there is no wrongdoing. Secondly, you don't want to shield anything against investigative authorities. And number three, that every transaction, if there were actually above board.
Yeah.
So I know he will still step aside. That is typical of every Kenyan who would create grants standing for no apparent reason. But ultimately, they all go home. We saw it with so many, including Waiguru.
Okay, so before we go to break as well, so the team investigating this, Directorate of Criminal Investigations, Asset Agency, Recovery Agency, and Kenya Revenue Authority, as a lawyer, what is it they'll be seeking to find that many appear to say is obvious and out there, and this is a done and dusted matter that does not need much looking into?
It's a very simple investigation. Because the investigation is one, did this company exist? Was it registered? 2, who are the directors? 3, did it transact business with NYS? Yes. Were payments done? Yes. Was at the time of trade, was one Philip Kinisu a director? Yes. That is conflict of interest. It is not a question whether the transactions were illegal. Philip Kinisu is not being charged in the public's domain for having committed any illegality. It is only that he conflicted himself by being a chairman or by being a director of a company when he knew very well that he is also holding the position of a chair of a public entity that is investigating the same company. So that he became a judge in an investigation he was also conducting himself as EACC, and that is what in the Public Officers Ethics Act and Article 232 of the Constitution makes it an illegality that you need to step aside. The fact that he might have disclosed, that is not enough. The disclosure at the vetting board or the disclosure at the wealth declaration forms that are normally filled after every 2 years is not enough.
Right.
The grounds of my position is that he is still presiding over as the chairman of the EACC, and yet his family is trading with an entity that is investigating.
Well,
Based on that,
Sophia, there has
All right,
been
we need to go on break.
791 million that is being investigated.
Yes,
So I
and
think these authorities will only be looking at the 281 million that you have read.
mentioned, yes.
Yeah, that has been mentioned. Whether it is a pointer towards the 791 million, and
Yeah.
if so, then I think Kinisu's goose is cooked already.
All right. So, do you think this is a witch hunt, or is Philip Kinisu a man that should step aside from the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission? Tweet me at Sophia Wanuna your views, Sophia Wanuna, your views, and I will read them as we continue with the show. We're taking a break now. When we return, we'll also go down memory lane and look at what happened to the other bosses of the anti-graft body. They rose, then they fell. Stay with KTN News. Please put for me the first, and then I will walk back with a jib. Okay, I hope the seat shall not disappoint. Let's see the first board. Okay, and anyway, so I will go with the flow. Yeah, it's this one. So it's Aaron Ringera. No, Haron Mwau is the first board. Where is Haron? You don't have, they didn't bring you a copy? Haron. Ringera is number 2, and those boards will be mixed up. Oh, lolo. What do you mean Mwau is missing? Mwau is not there. So which is the first one? Have they given you a printout to the person at least rolling to see? Let's go to the first one that you have then. This is not the first one. The first one of Ringera. Is my producer there with this copy? The Ringera has several boards, but this is not the first board of Ringera. The one that has appointed director, CASA 99. This is KACC established in 03. This is the second one. Aye, surely. Then let's not do the super well, because we're going to be misinforming people if that's the first. Yeah, this is the first one. Then the second one, so you go to 2003, yes. Then the next one. Then the last one. Yeah. Then Lumumba. Then Mumo. Sawa. So in that order. Sawa, thanks. Oh, we're starting with his up sound. Why don't we play it at the end then? So that I can walk. How long is it? Because then I can, after the Super Bowl. Yeah. Anyway, let's play it at the end when I say now he's a new chair. What is he saying in that sound? Up sound? Does the producer there? I can introduce it after Super Bowl, then I'll walk. Yeah. Instead of fast and then go to this, it will be weird. Good evening and welcome back to The Last Words. Today we are asking, will Philip Kinisu, the chair of the EACC, the man on our Super Bowl tonight, survive the storm he finds himself in? I want to take you down memory lane to see that even those that came before him, his predecessors in the institution that has been put in place by Kenyans to fight graft, did not quite manage to finish their terms under various circumstances. But remember in the early 90s, Kenya had a anti-corruption squad, and the police, in essence, were the ones investigating graft. But after a period of unsuccessful investigations, it was disbanded. Now, in 1997, IMF suspended aid to Kenya, and this was because of what they described as official corruption in government. That in itself led to the government at the time, led by Daniel Moi, to put together the Kenya Anti-Corruption Authority, popularly known as CASA. And a former policeman who later served as Kilome Member of Parliament, Harun Mwau, was the first director of CASA. However, he did not last long. Just 6 months after he was appointed, he was fired. After a few months, he brought a case against 15 individuals, including Treasury officials, of allegations that they had conspired to defraud the country of hundreds of millions of shillings. However, the State Law Office at that particular time controversially terminated that particular case. And this matter continued to escalate, putting him at a collision path with the then Finance Minister Simeon Nyachai, which ended up with Mwau being suspended and later removed as the conflict with Nyachai continued. After Harun Mwau, this is the man that took over KACA, CASA, in March 1999, about a year in office, a member of the public, retired judge, appointed in 1999. He, however, quit in 2000 after a high court ruled CASA was unconstitutional, and this was after a member of the public sued the state, arguing that the establishment of CASA undermined the authority of the Attorney General and the police. So the court there agreeing and saying statutory provisions that created the authority were in fact unconstitutional. So then CAS was established in 2003, the Kenya Anti-Corruption Commission. And Ringera, after leaving office, came back, reappointed to head KACC in August 2004. And also reappointed yes, as I mentioned, August 2004. Kibaki reappoints him for a second 5-year term in August of 2009. However, in this particular time and round, Parliament wasn't too happy with that because the same appointment or reappointment was not taken to Parliament for endorsement or otherwise, and so MPs voted against extension, and this forced him to resign in September of 2009. So having 2 stints there in what was formerly CASA and then CAS. And then there was Professor Patrick Lumumba, very well spoken professor there, appointed CAS director in July 2010. Lumumba taking office there and would leave office in 2011. He fell out with MPs over investigations into dozens of CDF accounts, as well as amid allegations that politicians had tried to bribe him to drop investigations into their conduct. So, but it appears the problems and challenges that plagued him and those that came before him continued. So of course MPs voting to transit as well from KACC to EACC, and that was where they managed to get him out, because then with that transitioning and to stay stick in line with the constitution that required an EACC to be put in place, then the MPs were able to vote Lumumba out by establishing the EACC and bringing it into effect. Then the immediate former EACC boss, Mumo Matemu, appointed EACC chair in 2012, but remember this was a controversial one because a whole year after he was appointed by both leaders of the Grand Coalition government, there was debate about his suitability. Remember there was debate in Parliament about a passionometer, whether he had enough passion to fight graft. But President Kenyatta, later on, after, of course, he was appointed, getting into office, there was a petition that was presented about his suitability, a Kenyan citizen arguing that he was not one that should run that graft body, that he did not have the kind of requirements and characteristics Chapter 6 especially required of a leader. And remember, by the time he was actually being endorsed by Parliament, it was a vote of 50 to 49, 50 for him and 49 against him. So of course, not surviving after that tribunal was formed, he decided to quit even before it began listening and hearing the matters raised in the petition. And then there is the man who was sworn in earlier on this year in January. It's been just about 6 months of him being at the helm. I remember when he was being sworn in, one of the things he said is that they were going to introduce as a new commission new tactics to fight corruption. So is it that people have introduced new tactics to fight him? Is a question that's been asked out there. Of course, before he was EACC chair, he was CEO of PWC, I beg your pardon. So we want to listen to some of what he had to say briefly, and we'll continue with our conversation here in studio as we seek the way forward. Let's take a listen to the EACC chair.
A scheme has now been hatched, and it's being executed right now to malign me using wild, false allegations, the details of which are now in the public domain.
All right, so he's talking about this as being wild allegations. Dunstan, is it a curse in that hot seat, as we're calling it, a graft hot seat that is in it, or is it that graft in this country is so entrenched? Because you remember in the TI, Transparency International report 2015, ranked Kenya 139 out of 168. Is it that we just can't win this, or that corruption is too big for an institution to be able to combat?
Sophia, my position is that before 1999, this work was being done by the police. Yes. And the criminal investigation department is still intact to date. By 1999, during the Moi regime, there was a perception by the Bretton Woods institutions, that's the World Bank, the IMF, and the Western civilized countries, but Kenya was a banana country in terms of dealing with corruption. So it was mandatory and compulsory, forced on Kenyans, that there must be a body to deal with corruption, and that is the formation of that body. Mm-hmm. The question that Kenyans need to ask themselves, me included, do we still need an agency called the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission? Mm-hmm. The mistake we did is to put that entity within the constitutional framework, which gives them protection of the constitutional provisions. But now that we have seen a complete musical chairs organization, a body that is a circus, the rotational doors that politicians walk in and walk out having been sanitized, having been cleared. You will be seeing a number, thousands thronging in towards the election time and coming out. When you look at the percentage and success rate of convictions that have come from the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, it is shameful. You look at the type of investigations that these people do. They do not have the capacity to do proper investigations. The staffs at the EACC are a few police officers who are seconded there as investigators, are very really able to marshal and walk around the whole nation to do that job. My position is very clear. It is not a curse, it is by design. The law that creates the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission is destined for it to fail. It is destined for it to sanitize and clear any suspect from being involved. And as I put it lastly to you, is that look at all organs of government vetted one Kinisu. Nobody raised that issue. So it is by design that all the four heads who have rolled, 3 of them are lawyers. Others are university don. One is a very serious judge. One was a former police cop, Ringera. And now we have a serious auditor who has failed in this test. My position is that the nation needs to start a national discourse whether we still pump billions into an entity that can only succeed in arresting traffic police officers who are taking bribes of 10 shillings and mega projects that are affecting the economy of this nation. There is no serious investigation anywhere to be done.
Right.
Well, I think, Sophia, you're right to say that it takes the shape of a jinxed office. Anyone who goes in there quickly comes out even before the expiry of their tenure. And you ask why. I think the very purpose why people get jobs at the EACC, particularly at the top echelon, chairmanship and the CEO, is to go there to transact government business, shield as many as you can, and live as a good person. Ringera, when he was in that office, he said, big fish and small fish will be treated alike. That means they will face the law as is prescribed in the Constitution. Now, he left that office even without dangling a hangman's noose on a man. And he left and went. I remember when PLO was there, I think he had very good intentions. He said, firstly, that we need to account for every individual's wealth, particularly those who hold elective offices. And he designed a form that was to be filled by every elected leader, members of parliament, so that people can know you rose from nothing and now you are something. So what brought you to the something level? But immediately they saw that form, they decided to disband the entire commission. It is akin to finding a snake in your house. Instead of just removing that snake and live peacefully in your house, you burned the entire house with the snake all inside. So they burned the entire house, PLO, Lumumba and company went home. So the purpose of establishment of that office is to help protect the big-bellied men who have amassed wealth in this country that cannot properly be accounted for, so that they can go on with their lives without any kind of interference. And that is very sad for this country.
Yes. Let me read some of the feedback coming through tonight. Kim Prince Harrison says, let Kinisu know that we are used to beg your pardon, used to I will not resign rhetoric. Kimunya, Matemu, Waiguru, and others said the same. Let's see. Teddy Achanga, you were saying he will, provided he produces concrete evidence against his enemies, he is innocent anyway. Then there's Oselu Ochieng. Why were they appointing him at the first place? Surely if they knew he was corrupt. Well, corruption has not been proven in this particular matter. Then Prince, I question his appointment, so let him go home. Michael Moore, Kinisu needs to take the knife that he's... okay. He says something that I shall not read on air. Teddy, he will, provided he produces concrete evidence. Then there's another one here. Ainea, Victor Osok, one more before we continue the discussion. As long as chair of EACC declared his interest, as was stated on Sunday dailies, he is free to do business with whoever. So, from where you sit, is this a lost cause, trying to appoint another or keep this one in office, that it's just going to be the same script but different individuals, different cast?
This is not a lost cause. We still have Kenyans of goodwill. Kenyans who can take charge of the EACC and move it to another level. But this
Really? Where do you find those ones? Because the past appeared to have come with all of their goodwill. Lumumba talked about high voltage files. We've had the big fish and the small fish. They came with all this tough talk. So what is it they missed?
You're asking about where I can get those ones?
Yes.
You bunga the you have them.
All right.
Well, I think, Sophia,
Let them finish.
We are carrying out so many campaigns. Right now, there's a petition filed by the chair of Bunga la Mwananchi Tarakanidi branch, because remember, Bunga la Mwananchi is not only in Nairobi, it's all over for 7 counties. And for me, I represent the whole of